Our passion didn't start with the mouth. It started with people, with the well-being of the profession. And if you're like me, maybe a little bit of your nerdiness and all things tech too. We all want to love what we do, but the truth is, burnout, people problems, and glass ceilings can keep us from doing what we set out to do. So let's get back to the heart of connection. Welcome to the Dental Handoff. This show is about passing you the knowledge, the habits, the systems, and the strategies to lead your teams, lean on your tech, and listen to your gut while you take care of people and truly the overall health of our communities. Let's stop using the wrong end of the toothbrush, y'all. My name is Dr. Kelly Tanner. Oh, and uniquely, I'm a dental hygienist too. You can consider me a guru in the dental and leadership industry. With over 3 decades of experience, my goal is to take you to the next level by empowering growth, perspective, and confidence. By identifying the gaps, recognizing the plaque, and extracting the truth with the other experts in the field. I'll share their stories, empower you to own yours, and elevate your passion in the process. So have a seat in the chair, put on your bib, and let's get to work. Welcome to the Dental Handoff. I'm Dr. Kelly Tanner, and today I have with me the Emily Boge everybody knows and loves. Hello. We are at ADHA conference at the Bisco booth, and I got the privilege of running into an award-winning instrument designer, lover of all things dental and people, Emily Boge. So, Emily, I always start with why dental hygiene for you? Like, what's your story?
Okay, so I started out in pharmacy school. Actually, when I was in 7th grade, I invented a fly vacuum with my best friend, and we won Invent Iowa, and I got a college scholarship. And then when I was in 11th grade, I went to biomedical camp at the University of Iowa, and I got another college scholarship. So I just decided that I wanted to be a pharmacist. I really don't know why. I just had it in my head I wanted to be a pharmacist. I never shadowed a pharmacist. I never, in hindsight, I'm not really sure why I just picked that job. But I went to school at Iowa for a year and I hated it. Totally hated it. So I went and did a career inventory survey. And everything on that career inventory survey pointed toward dentistry. And at that time, I was pretty seriously dating a farmer. And I thought, I don't want to have a business. I would rather, go into the dental hygiene side. So then, like many of us here at the conference, I had to wait to get into hygiene school. And so in the meantime, I went to dental assisting school, and then I did hygiene school and practiced as a clinical hygienist for 12 years. And then, it was about 2009, I started doing some stuff with Colgate. I was on their oral health advisory committee, and I started just getting more out into the corporate side of dentistry. I never really thought anybody would care about what somebody, a small town girl from Iowa thought. And when these companies started to really value my opinion as a clinician, I was like, holy cow. So then I went into doing some article writing for them. And as I was doing article writing, it became apparent that I should probably have a bachelor's degree. Because at that time, I had a diploma and 2 associate's degrees, a diploma in dental assisting, associates in arts, and then associates in applied science and dental hygiene. And so I went back and I got my bachelor's degree. And I couldn't believe how easy the bachelor's program was. And if you can do hygiene school, you can do anything. And so when I was in the bachelor's program, one of my teachers was like, you should get a master's. He's like, you're really good at writing. You should get a master's. So I rolled right into a master's program. Graduated from that in 2015, and I got a call from the college where I went to college, and they said that they were badly in need of a program director. Their program director had left. They had some leadership issues that needed to be resolved, and they wanted me to apply for the job. So I was never really in formal education before that. I hadn't been a professor. I hadn't been an instructor at the school. And so I'm like, I don't know if I really can apply for a job as the administrative chair of dental assisting and dental hygiene if I'd never done education. But then I really thought about it, and I was like, as a hygienist, we all are educators, right? Yeah. It's just kind of part of being a hygienist. And the other thing, I was giving some continuing education programs on the local level I'd given a couple on the national level, but I wasn't super busy like a lot of the speakers that were around that time of, 2010, 2012, that were on the road a lot traveling. And so I applied for the job and I thought, well, I'll try my best. And if it's not my jam, then I'll do it for a couple of years and then I won't do it anymore. And here we are 8 years later. And so the college did help me with paying for my doctorate. So I went back and got my doctorate, finished that in 2021, and just have been bopping around doing education. Back in 2010, I designed an instrument with Hugh Freedy, designed another instrument in 2015 with American Eagle. I have a new periodontal probe coming out with PDT and another instrument with PDT that will probably be coming out next year that we haven't really talked a whole lot about. I'm also working on selling a patent right now for a home care product. And so it's been a pretty busy go around, but that's kind of like my whole story. But now my main focus in dental hygiene is really supporting and empowering students and giving them the confidence that they need to be entry-level clinicians. Because we all remember how it feels when you graduate and you get out into like the real world, and it's really, really overwhelming. And so I just want to make sure they have all the tools they need to succeed.
Okay, so that was a lot. So you went from applying, back way up. You decided you wanted to be a pharmacist, and then you didn't want to be a pharmacist. And then what inside of you said, okay, I'm going to apply for this program? Was it just kind of like, whatever, I'm just going to do it?
Well, when you do those career inventory surveys, it was like, I don't remember exactly because it was like 25 years ago, but it's like 200 and some questions that you answer, right? Yeah. It's kind of like taking one of those personality profiles. But everything indicated healthcare. And then I looked at the various healthcare options and everything kept landing on dentistry. I didn't go to the dentist until I was 15. So I'm one of 11 kids. The first time I went to the dentist, I had like 18 cavities. And because, my parents didn't have enough money to take all of us to the dentist. So you only really went to the dentist when you had problems. And so I didn't want to go there anyway, because I didn't, you hear horror stories from your siblings. Right. But yeah, that's part of the reason I did dental assisting school in the interim, because I just wasn't sure that being in the mouth was going to be my jam, And I thought the more I looked into dental hygiene, the more it just clicked. Like, hey, this is going to be something I'm going to enjoy. Right. And so dental hygiene kind of found me. I know that's kind of cliche, but I needed guidance, and that's where I was guided to.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of gutsy for a lot of people. So imagine a person hearing your story and they're thinking, how do I follow in the steps? Of course, no one is you, no one's me, but how would I become a person who develops instruments? How would I step into that? What kinds of words of advice would you give to them to say, like, it's okay, just do it anyway, even though you're not, like, things like that? What was going through your head at that time?
I tell the students often that I've done everything in this industry, done a lot of stuff wrong. I did it wrong the first time, and then I figured out how to do it right the second time. My big thing is you have to say yes, right? Sometimes I say yes too much, but you have to at least try, because so often I have students, and that's one of the first things I tell the students when they apply for the program or when they come to their registration session. You have to know your why. Like, going into it, you have to know your why, because if you don't know your why and it starts to get hard, you're going to quit. And so that's kind of how I've approached a lot of the things I've done in the industry. And you have to meet people, and you can't do it yourself. And so a good chunk of my success in my career has come from knowing the right people. Like, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I have really smart friends, like Dr. Kelly Tanner here, a very smart human. But I surround myself with people who can help me. And so many people are afraid to ask for help. And I tell the students that a lot of times too, is as soon as you need help, you need to ask for it. The sooner you ask for it, the better. And I didn't know that for a lot of years. And that's once I realized that asking for help is okay, then all these good things started happening for me. And the other thing that I realized was, if something isn't your jam, then don't do it again. Like, try anything once. If it's not your jam, don't do it again. Yeah.
And so say yes,
Yeah.
and then get clear, and then get clear on if you want to do that again, or if you want to keep going, lean into it. But then you said something too, that you started having conversations with different companies and they started listening to you. And I try to tell the students that all the time. It's just like, your opinion matters. Like, I want you to stretch beyond what you know, and I want you to try this. Think beyond what you know and try this, because this is your career and you're going to be trying this this new thing for the rest of your life as you evolve. Technology continues to disrupt what it is that we're doing. And so you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable,
For sure.
and knowing that the first time that you pick up anything, it's not going to seem natural.
Right. And that's the other hard part. I think in our hygiene personality, it's extra frustrating for us when things don't work out. And then we beat ourselves up about it. And then we don't want to try again. And I see that happen time and time and time again. The other thing is, people will ask me, oh, how, like, you've had some pretty cool success happen, but how did you do it? Like, they want like a step-by-step plan, but their how to do it isn't going to match my how to do it, because we're not on the same track. And that's the other thing that's really hard to tell people. Because people will come to me and ask for advice. Like, I have this idea, what do I do? And I'm like, well, first you have to network and find people you trust. Well, how do I find people I trust? Well, first of all, you got to protect yourself. So get an NDA written, have them sign an NDA, and you sign the NDA. It protects both sides. Then you can share your ideas once you have it in writing. So make sure that you take the right steps. And I'm happy to tell you about those right steps, but I can't do it for you. And I have found that a lot of people want to have they want to reap the rewards, but they don't want to put in the work. And I mean, I work really, really hard, but I also love to work. So you have to first make sure you like what you're doing and you're willing to put the time into it. And then the success will come, but you can't expect it to happen overnight. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years and I still some days feel like I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, I don't know what's going to happen in a year. And people are like, oh, what's next for you? And that's the other really hard thing. Sometimes you just have to say, nothing's next. Like, that was really hard for me. I don't know if you had that experience after your doctorate.
Yes.
But you get that dissertation done and you present. And I remember turning my computer off after my dissertation and closing it and being like, oh, crap, what am I going to do now? Like, I was busy enough in the industry, but it was just like, I've been working so hard for this for so long, and now I have it. What am I going to do now?
People would ask you probably, what are you going to do when you're done? What are you going to do? What did you say?
I probably heard that. I probably heard it 20 times this weekend already, or this week at the meeting. And I finally, like, right after I completed my dissertation, I went to the Chicago Midwinter meeting that year in 21, like a couple weeks later. And I kind of walked around and people kept asking me that question. And I finally, one of my business partners from Germany said, you can tell people that you're not going to do anything. You can just tell people, I'm just going to enjoy this right now. Like, I'm going to be in the now right now. And I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't hard to think about. Why didn't I think of that?
Because that's not our personality. It's what's next. It's what's next. Because too, once you have the doctorate and any type of degree, you have a responsibility. It's almost, people look to you to do something with that for their profession, or right, because you have this knowledge that you've worked so hard for. It's okay, Emily, how are you going to save the world with what you just learned?
Well, and it's, success is a drug, I think, because when you have it, then you want it again, and then you want it again, and then what can I do that was better than what I just did, and how can I that, and then one more, right? And so I'm kind of have an addictive personality like that with success in dentistry. Like, what am I going to do next? And so you get that in your head, and it can be kind of almost like harmful sometimes, because you just get so caught up in the work. And I'm fortunate enough to have a husband that will be like, okay, let's slow down, and you have too much on your plate, and he'll kind of ground me. Have a couple great kids that do the same thing. But you have to recognize that you can't do everything. And sometimes it's okay to just chill. The other thing I want to tell you, and I haven't told a whole lot of people this, is I'm trying to publish my doctorate and it just got rejected by a major journal. And I was like, just found out a couple months ago, and I've been really depressed about it. And I was in a meeting this morning and someone said something that just like really grounded me. Like, you have to just try again. Like, if it didn't work the first time, you have to try again. And so I'm like, that's why I'm here. That's why I came to ADHA this year, because I needed to hear that come out of that person's mouth. And so now I'm going to figure out where I want to try to publish it again. And it was really hard for me because I had edited it 3 times. And
to get it into journal format, it's like you have to squish it because you have this
121 pages.
Say how long was it, and then you have to squish it into how many words.
And I squished it down to 5,000 words. And still I'm like, am I changing the intent of it? And then I always am second guessing, like, why don't they want it? Isn't it good enough? And it just, the bottom line is it's just not relevant to what they want their publication to be, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard because when you have success and then you get rejected, it's just like, well, that stinks. I wasted all that time. And I just had that realization this morning, like, you know what? It wasn't a waste of time because I learned how to do it. And the next time it'll be easier. And I already have it kind of shrunk down.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's taken me a couple months to really get over that.
Wow. And so with that too, I think that we've all been there, and it's, the success. I read a book called The Gap and the Gain. I don't know if you've ever read that, but it talks about how when you chase, not really chase, but we can chase success. So it talks about in the book that, we try to measure ourselves against, the pursuit of happiness and God in some instances, where it's like you try to be as good as something else. And what is that measure truly in your mind? But like you just said, through that process of what you did, you learned a lot about yourself. And I think too, for me, my doctorate was learning a lot about myself. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And last night, I went to the Dimensions Esther Wilkins Award ceremony, and Anne Spillarch won, and she has always been like, that's what I wanted to be. I saw people like Anne, I saw people like Joanne, like Winnie Fanari, like Jackie Frieding, and you see those people and you're like, someday I'm going to get there. And I think that's why I love coming to these meetings, because I see people like you and it's like, wow, she's killing it. And it just gives you such ambition and like refuels your fire. And for people who are watching this podcast that don't come to these hygiene meetings, that's what you're missing. I mean, yeah, you have to invest a little money in yourself by paying to come to the meeting, but the people that are here are you surround yourself with inspiration and motivation. And I always feel bad for those hygienists that are out there in private practice that are all by themselves in maybe a smaller office, who don't have that support and don't have that motivation, and they don't know what they're missing. And just the empowerment that the fellow hygienists at this meeting, the men and women who are here that are just killing it, it's so inspirational.
Yeah. It's those, have you found too that we were talking about this yesterday on another podcast? Sometimes when you're chasing something, when you feel like you're chasing it, that it doesn't chase you back, you feel like you're let down. Right. But it's when you stop chasing is when it drops in. Right. Are you finding that too?
Oh yeah, all the time. And I'll feel myself getting disappointed. And then why am I even disappointed? Like all the good things you have going on, but you forget about all that because the one thing didn't work out for you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when I presented to an audience of almost 2,000 people in May. And one of the reviews was just scathing. And the other, over 1,000 reviews were really good. But what did I think about? The one person that was like, that's not what I signed up for. She didn't present what I signed up for. Well, did you read the course description and objectives? And I get so hung up on that. But then I'm like, you know what? Maybe that person was just having a bad day.
Right.
And if that's how they wanted to let their frustration out, well, I gave them an outlet. But you just focus, and I do that with student reviews at school too.
I was just getting ready to say the student reviews. I'm like, what did I go wrong? What did I do?
Oh, and you try to think, in what lecture did I say that? Or or what time were they talking about where I had a question on a test that wasn't covered? Like you try to like rack your brain. One question that you gave to 20 students and one of them was unhappy with it. And that's what you get so hung up on.
Yeah, but you're so exactly right too about that one course eval with that big audience, and we focus on that, I think, because we're trying to fix it, right? Because when it comes to student evaluations too, or even if a student doesn't do well on a test, I think it's my fault.
Right.
I'm like, what did I not cover? What can I do better? How is there room for improvement for me? So it's always an introspective, reflective way to look at that. And so I think that is a way that we sort of define our success and what it is that we are doing. And I think we need to stop that. I really think it's the chase, and the chase, we just got to slow down and sometimes let it find us. Because when did you, I'm shifting gears here a little bit. When did you figure out that you wanted to develop your first instrument? Like, what was that process like?
Well, I had an idea. And it's kind of a long drawn out story, but the first time I designed an instrument, I had an idea and the company kind of took and ran with it and didn't really get me involved in the process. And I showed up at a meeting and the instrument was there, but I didn't have a lot of input in it. And so the second time I did it, I was very, I got my non-disclosure agreement signed and I got my ducks in a row and I sat down and met with the engineer and we mapped out a plan. But yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in like bending instruments and playing around with the metallurgy and that kind of stuff. But it never occurred to me that it could actually happen. Like, if you have an idea, it can happen. It might not be able to happen overnight. And people might say no. And so with this patent I'm working on right now, I was in discussion with this company since January. And they just yesterday decided that they weren't going to buy it. Well, now I'm going to move on to another company. So I can either get depressed about the fact that the one company doesn't want to buy it, even though I wasted 7 months, blah, blah, blah. I didn't waste that time. We got our PowerPoint decks in a row. We have our pitch deck. We have everything polished. We made the videos of it. I mean, all that stuff is now done. And so at first, when I got told no, I was like, well, this sucks. What am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to start over, and that's okay. And so I get really disappointed. And I feel like as I get older, I can shift out of that disappointment easier.
Good.
I don't know if you have the same experiences, but I feel like age has given me some maturity in that aspect.
Yeah, it's perspective, I think, because I think what I have learned from it is that, and that's an important point that you make, is that being able to get out of the funk quicker saves so much energy and so much time, especially when you feel like you've lost time. Right. And it's to first identify that it's happening, to be like, oh, I didn't like that. And to feel like you're feeling low. Okay, what's the opportunity here? What was I supposed to learn from this?
Right. And I also think as I get older, I'm starting to care less and less about what people think of me. Not that I want to openly offend people or anything like that, but I used to get so bent out of shape. Like if somebody would make, I don't know, let's just make some up. Like they would make a comment about my outfit. Be like, well, what's wrong with my outfit today? Like I would get so hung up on it. And now I'm like, man, well, sorry you don't like my outfit. I'll move on. You know what I mean? Like very trivial things I used to get really hung up on. And as I get older, I'm just not allowing that anymore.
Good. And I think too that through that, moving on, that process of taking that next step of saying, you know what, that's okay. That's okay. It builds, I think, resilience in what you're doing to prove to yourself that it can work out, that it will work out. And it doesn't take you trying to put something where it doesn't belong in your life with anything.
The other thing I've realized is being in an educator position, the students will pick up on how I treat myself. And I've just in the last couple of years really internalized that, if I have a bad attitude, then the room has a bad attitude. Like whether you label yourself as a leader or not, you're a leader. Yeah. Like, and I find that with like, even when I give a CE to an audience, like if I had a bad, frustrating morning getting my equipment set up and I carry that bad attitude into my lecture, the audience, the vibe is there. And that's something that I've really been trying to improve on, just making sure that my attitude is positive. So then people around me will kind of hopefully pick up on it.
That's such great words of advice, because that energy, it really does. People can sense it. I mean, it's so, if you remember growing up, like if your parents were fighting, man, you knew it. You knew it was going down, and you just stayed out of their way. Or if you felt like they were in a bad mood and you were going to ask them a question, but you're like, no, I'm not. Now's not the time. They know that, and so to that self awareness is what I think is one of the most critical pieces of our foundation as an individual. It's what we're responsible for, that self leadership, truly.
And I think that, I don't know how political I can get on this podcast, but I think that the association needs to work on that more. And I think that the Dental Hygiene Association we all know it. We're down on members. All associations across all professions are down on members. But I think that we need to get back to the roots of why we're members and why we have to have an association, and the ethics part of it and the standards of practice part of it. And we need to just take a good hard look about accepting each other and being kind to each other. And that vibe, I think at this meeting, I'm feeling a lot of positivity at this meeting, and it makes me so happy because we talk up the association so much in our program. All of our students are members. But why don't they stay members? And I think that positivity is an entity that we are working on, and we need to continue to work on that acceptance and just kindness.
And being open. I think when you look at any great leader, which, as you stated, and I agree that we all are leaders in our profession, leaders in our office, to our families, to our communities, it all starts with love, right? Because that's where kindness comes from, is wanting something for someone else that has nothing to do with you. I mean, it's out of your own empathy. Okay.
Did it pick you up?
Yeah, hold on. So we'll just spread that. So it all starts with love, and because that's the center of everything. It's at the center of kindness. It's at the center of what the way that we reach outside of ourselves to form that empathy, to say, I can connect with what you just said. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. That must have been very difficult to say that. And what you said resonates with me, because, and this meeting, this time, it feels different. It feels like that people are here out of love for their profession.
Right.
And we just need more of it, period. The end.
Right.
We have to remain open to other people. It doesn't have to mean that we have to agree with everything,
Right.
but we need that difference to create that bias, that kind of that check-in bias as well.
I agree. We don't have to be each other's best friends all the time, but you have to be kind to each other.
Yes.
And I think that you can disagree on business and still agree on how we need to move forward as a profession, and how professionalism looks to society. And that's my big thing, man. My ultimate dream before I retire, and I say this time and time and time again, is to walk down the street and be able to say to anyone, I'm a dental hygienist, and they know what that means.
Yeah.
And I always want to know what percentage of people don't know what a hygienist is. Because before I went to hygiene school, before I took that career inventory survey, I had no idea what the difference between a dental assistant, a dental hygienist, and a dentist was. And that's what I want for us. I want for us to be like, when someone says they're an RN, people know what an RN is.
Yeah.
I want that for the RDH, LDH. I want it globally. And I think that that's what I put my heart into. And I tell students, that's what you need to get out there and tell people how educated you are, how much you know, what you can do for society. Because that societal recognition of dental hygiene, I don't think that we're where we need to be with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, thank you so much for being on this show today. I'm so glad at these conferences, you just run into so many people who you see online or see articles written from, and they just fill you up, right? They just, it warms your heart, and to me, that's priceless.
Yeah, you can't get that anywhere else.
No, you can't.
No.
So to all of our listeners, thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to give us 5 stars on Apple. 5 stars. 5 stars. 5 stars. Emily Boge says give us 5 stars. And then and then go onto YouTube, like, share, subscribe with your friends who you love, and be well. Thanks for all that you're doing in your communities. Have a great week.